Alrighty, what's good, guys? In today's conversation, we are going to be talking about the highly anticipated Skydio X2. Let's get into it.
Hey there guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Flight Time. As Ken said, we're going to be talking about the Skydio X2 today, and I think that on the surface level, it seems like it's just another drone, but if you look at it from, a 100-foot view, if you kind of look at the whole entire thing that Skydio is doing here, you'll probably see the bigger picture. Now, just, I guess a little update, I am recording this under a blanket right now inside of my basement.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
I haven't sound treated this new area that I'm shooting in yet. I've got my computer under this blanket with me, and it feels like it's 110 degrees. So Ken, why don't we try and get this one over quick?
Yeah, no doubt. So let's go over what the Skydio X2 is. So the Skydio X2 is a thermal capable drone. It's going to come in two flavors, the X2 and the X2E. So basically, Skydio's identified that there's going to be two different use cases for this. One for search and rescue and reconnaissance, and then of course you're going to have the use case which is going to come into play from somebody who's doing construction or maybe needing this from an enterprise perspective. The drone itself is a sort of a similar design to the Skydio 2. However, now we have retractable arms all the way around. It folds up much smaller, similar to a Mavic. It's made completely out of carbon fiber, the same type of carbon fiber that we are seeing on a lot of these FPV quads, so which means it can definitely handle a good beating. If it falls, it's not going to break. They've also included GPS on this unit, so now you have an option to fly this at night, as to where the S2 you did not. It also has a brand new proprietary controller, which they're dubbing this controller the Skydio Enterprise controller. It has a built-in screen, and the range has been promised to be better at 6.2 kilometers, which is roughly about 3.8 miles if you converted that over to imperial. So there you go. So those are some of the oversight or the brief overlook at what we're getting here with this drone.
So I know that you made a video already kind of on the Skydio 2, the X2, and so what are your overall thoughts? Because I think something that's really interesting here is not only is Skydio kind of branding this as an enterprise drone being able to be used for commercial purposes, they're branding it as a military drone. They show in the marketing material these soldiers using the drone, and I find that really cool, and I find it really different because we've never seen any of these other drone manufacturers specifically point out that it's good for military applications.
So obviously with Skydio being an American-made company, it's an American company. Their software is produced here. It's maintained here. Technically speaking, it's DoD approved, which means, the Department of Justice, the military could essentially pick up this application. Whether or not it's actually used by military, that will be the question. Because remember, we have a lot of private sector military. We have a lot of law enforcement, SWAT teams that would find that something like this is far more capable to put into a situation where you may have a hostage or something where it's just not safe to send a human because you're not really 100% sure of the terrain or what's going on the other side of the world or on the other side of that wall. So you send this around and you allow this to sort of dissect the situation for you. So I can see there's some use case. I don't necessarily know if military was the right advertisement because I saw them sort of backtrack that a little bit on Twitter, just saying that they're never going to make this to where weapons can be attached to it. They have no intention on ever weaponizing their autonomous systems, which is good because that's, that's something. This is more of something that would be a de-escalation tool, I think. I think you would use this to sort of understand a situation and how do we diffuse this? How do we de-escalate it? And that's where I see this coming into play with that thermal sensor. The possibilities are honestly endless.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that reconnaissance is huge with drones. I mean, weaponizing them to a certain extent is great. I don't know how much of a payload you could stick on such a small drone like that. Would it actually even be worth it to, say, try and fit like a little gun on there or something?
So I think it's not worth it at that point.
yeah, no, drones like this really are made for reconnaissance and gathering intelligence. I mean, intelligence is key really in any situation. And something that I think really sets the bar for that is its autonomy, right? It can fly basically by itself, thus it's a great, I guess, intelligence gathering tool. Now, backtracking a little bit, I know you brought up the Skydio Enterprise controller, and what I hate about these enterprise controllers is they feel like they have to be the biggest controller in the world. Like they feel like the more buttons they add on it, the more screens they add on it, that automatically makes it seem like it's the best remote controller out there. And you know what? I kind of found this out after using the X Dynamics Evolve. Like when we had that drone in hand and when I was flying that drone around with the remote controller, at first glance, it's like, wow, look at this controller. It's got 2 screens. It's got a nice little monitor hood kind of wrapping around it to kind of deflect some of the sun glare. You look at that controller and you think that it's very impressive, but after you actually fly with that controller, it's kind of a pain because of how big it is. And I would rather something that's the size of like a smart controller, do you know? So
I agree.
On one end of the spectrum, I think a larger controller can give you a lot of benefits, especially if you look at like the Sendence remote controller, where it kind of takes the design of the Phantom remote and the Inspire remote and it kind of just beefs it up and amps it up to like 1,000% with all the extra buttons and the extra screen and whatnot. But like at the end of the day, man, if you've got a long day of flying, do you really feel like that is going to be necessary? So
here's the thing though, we don't really have any. So here's the problem with this smart control or the Skydio Enterprise controller. We really don't have anything to scale it to, you know what I mean? Like we're seeing these photos and we saw a video, but it really doesn't allow us to scale it to really understand how big or how small. Because sometimes we look at something and we're like, oh man, that's huge. We get it in hand and we're like, okay, this is manageable. I mean, do I think that's the case with this? No. I mean, it sort of looks like, you know, one of the old Sega controllers from that, you know,
it really does.
Portable. Yeah, it sort of looks like that portable system they had at one time. I don't even remember the name of it, but that's what it looks like. And I mean, I understand that there's certain tech that they're probably putting inside of this that it has to do this. Another interesting thing, though, moving away from the controller a little bit, is something that we haven't seen in a drone yet, which is 360 super zoom is what they're calling this. And they have also confirmed that this view or vantage point is going to be coming to the Skydio S2 as well, which I think is absolutely incredible, which is supposed to give you much more situational awareness. It uses trinocular visibility. That's a word I learned from Rick Smith. Basically takes those sensors it has on the side, because again, those are 12 megapixel sensors on the side. It's going to allow you to combine those with the main sensor so you can have most like a 360 view at your vantage, which I think is incredible.
You know what I find really great about Skydio as a company? I think it was definitely you who said it. I don't know if it was on the show that you have where you had Adam Bryan as a guest. I don't know if it was the video you made on the Skydio X2. But regardless, they're a software company that happens to make drones, right? And you look at the car industry and you see Tesla, how they're making this incredible software to pair with their cars. And I think that Tesla is regarded, in my opinion, as a better software manufacturer than a car manufacturer, even though their cars are so great. But you look at Skydio and you almost think the same thing. They have got incredible software that they continue to add to their drone. And you talk about the lifespan of a drone and how, the Mavic Air 2, it comes out and then, oh, look, we've got panoramas now. And oh, look, we're adding all these features. Even though the Mavic Air 2 hasn't gotten a substantial update yet, but they always add these features in. Skydio is taking it to a whole nother level, and I feel like every single time the drone gets updated, you're getting a brand new experience. And that's something to say, because if you get a phone, you probably only have that phone for a year, 2 years maybe, but a drone you might have for 4 or 5 years, and if they can continue to refresh that experience of flying your drone, that's a better investment and a better purchase than something like a DJI drone or an Autel drone, because you pretty much get what you pay for.
You're right, and I think they learned their lesson with their first one with the Skydio R1. It wasn't very modular, and I'm not saying the Skydio 2 is modular, but what they did was they have like a digital headroom when they built these drones, and that digital headroom is in their software. This drone is far more capable than they ever advertised or even told us it could be, which is sort of cool, because you're buying this drone thinking, hey, it does X, Y, and Z, and then next thing you know, they're updating it like you said, and it's getting better and better. And what's cool about Skydio is they're a very secretive company, and I think that shows how well American companies are able to conceal their products. as to where everything leaks out overseas, but this was totally off the cuff, off the radar, and they just dropped it like, here you go, this is what we have here. And I think it just shows sort of the verticals that they're able to run with. And I mean, combined in a FLIR boson, a 320 by 256 sensor, not an impressive resolution, but again, considering this application, I think it's going to be more than adequate for what most people are going to purchase this drone for.
Yeah, I think that it's a starting point for them. I wonder if that camera is modular. I'm going to go with no, but if they could...
I don't know. So if you look at the design of this, there's a lot of screws and exposed rivets. It's almost like they designed this thing to be repairable to a certain extent. I mean, it really does look like they're anticipating this thing to take a beating. And, if I didn't know any better, they probably designed this thing to be self-repairable to a certain extent, because that's really what it looks like. I mean, it's unlike anything I've seen from a drone. Some would say it's ugly, but
no, man, I think it looks cool.
I don't know. I think it looks aggressive.
I think it looks really badass. I think that it looks rugged. I think it looks like it can take a beating. I think it looks like it's something that you're not going to care if you put it in your bag and it gets scratched up a little bit, because I doubt that this is even going to get scratched up.
Let's be clear though. This is a drone that's not for the consumer though.
Yes. Yeah,
I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, it's amazing. I want it. To have thermals, to have this, you need to have a reason. The other thing is, you're not going to find this on Skydio store like you normally would. They're going to want to know who's purchasing this product. Just like when you buy a DJI Enterprise product, you can't buy it from DJI. You can't buy that from the store.
Yeah.
The same as you could the other quads. You have to go through a dealer. You have to be vetted to be able to use thermals, because there's all sorts of rules and regulations when it comes down to it. So I just want to be clear for everybody listening. This is cool to see, but it's not a drone that you're probably going to own for a lot of reasons. One, it's probably not practical, and there still is no price out on this drone right now. Which
what do you think in terms of price? If you had to guess, just right off the top of your head.
Looking at everything here and understanding its capabilities, and given the fact the price is definitely in the thermal sensor, essentially. So I'm going to say we're about 6,500 to 8K at least.
You think? I almost thought a little bit more.
No, and the only reason why I say no to more is because that FLIR boson sensor by itself is about $2,800 or so. Just because of that sensor. Now, if it had the upgraded resolution, like what's on the Evo 2 Dual, I would say and that's probably cost in that sensor. It's probably more than that actually at FLIR boson, but still, I'm thinking about 8,500. It's going to be under 10K, I believe. I believe it will be under 10K, but that's just for the drone. That doesn't include the smart controller, because we don't know what the pricing is going to be on the controller. So this could be a system over $10,000, maybe that $13,000, $15,000 mark, depending on what that controller is.
I've got two thoughts here. So when you go onto like the X2 portion of Skydio's website, they've got a couple of things here. The first of which is enterprise skills. That's what I want to talk about. But you've also got Skydio X2, Skydio Enterprise Controller. So going into the enterprise skills, it shows a lot of the software updates that not only the X2 are going to get when you purchase that drone, but that the Skydio 2 has, their consumer version of it, right? Like I'm looking at this precision mode and how it can fly in these really tight corridors. Like that is an area where I wouldn't even fly the Tello, because it's so tight and so narrow. And the fact that this drone could do something like this autonomously blows my mind. I mean, I wonder how potentially wind could affect this, right? Like if you've got a windy day, would you maybe want to halt and not do something like this? Because of course, if the wind, a gust just blows the drone, that could be game over for the drone. Also, I'm looking here, it says 180 vertical view. This is with the Skydio X2. So this is, of course, the design we saw in the Parrot and Navi, right? Being able to point the camera straight up. And this makes me wonder if Skydio's, I guess, partnership with Parrot lies deeper than just the remote controller. Because, of course, they borrowed their remote. Of course, Parrot is getting some sort of royalty for the purchase of those remotes.
Look at this design. It's sort of like, it has some very Anafi-like design to it. But but without the daintiness, I guess, because the Anafi was a very dainty drone. I mean, you can break it easily, as to where you look at this and it's definitely far more robust, but it still screams Skydio, the way the positioning is of the motors facing downward versus upwards, and just the tubing's a little bit bigger. So I'm willing to bet you're probably right. I bet you that there is some partnership there, and I wonder if Skydio partnered with Parrot to design this enterprise controller. And I don't have a problem with that happening either, though.
Yeah, and the controller and the camera, like the gimbal, I guess assembly, looks very similar. I'm also, I got to bring this up because I think that, hats off to Skydio here. They know who is buying their drones, right? Like they're offering these different feature sets in the drones that they know people are going to be buying it for, right? So it says Skydio House Scan here at the bottom of the enterprise, or of the enterprise skills page here, and this is something that somebody would go out and buy $1,000 drone to do, is scan a house, right? Like they're offering these features to people in the drones they know they're going to buy. So with the Skydio 2 being able to do this house scan, it wouldn't make sense to do these scans for what you would get in terms of, like, I guess, cost on the back end to go and purchase a $6,000 or $8,000 drone. So I got to give hats off to them there, because they know their market, they know their consumers, and that's something we typically don't see from a drone company. Like I feel like, other than DJI, a lot of people overprice their stuff potentially, and it kind of puts things out of reach. I mean, even DJI with their enterprise drones are just so far out of reach, but the Skydio 2 is offering a lot of really great autonomous functions at a much lower price, which I really like.
I think so. Here's what I think with Skydio. They realize, like, hey, we're a player in the game, but maybe we're not the most well-known player, and we're not the ones, at the end of everybody's tongue in the commercial world. So I think to make a splash, the easiest way to do that and sort of appeal to a company is offer a lot of features for an affordable price, right? You put out a really attractive entry price, and now you got them hooked. And you got them hooked for the duration of however long this drone is going to be in their arsenal for as a functioning unit.
Yeah.
And then maybe the next unit, they slightly ramp that price, because now they've built trust. They've built brand loyalty from a company. So, it's to them, like I said, who's to say that eventually, maybe it's like just the drones are just the body, but the software is something you're paying for to get these upgrades, right?
Well,
Instead of buying a new drone, you pay for a software update.
Yeah, I think that you're totally right. I mean, you look at Tesla, they have, when you build a car, you go and you put options in your car. And you get this base model. If you continue to build it out, you can add on, like, different rims. You can add on, bigger packages, a leather interior, whatever, right? But with Tesla, you can add on or the autopilot function, which is $8,000. So if you think about it, they don't have to add any extra hardware. They don't have to do anything other than just give you the ability to use that software. And you're totally right. I can totally see drone manufacturers, especially Skydio, doing this because their software is so powerful and it's so strong. I mean, they've got the hardware put into place on their Skydio 2 right now with the cameras, even the front camera, 4K 60. I mean, you think about it, like, who moving forward is going to need to shoot higher than 4K? Like, I think I was talking with somebody on Instagram, and they went and they bought the Sony a7 III, and he was like, yeah, I couldn't hold out for the Sony a7S III any longer. And the more I thought about it, it's like, man, unless you are like somebody who demands a higher resolution, just for really, I would say 99% of people out there, the Sony a7 III is going to give you everything that you need and more. And the same thing with a drone like the Skydio 2 that can shoot 4K video at 60 frames per second. Like, what more do you need than that? Seriously.
You really don't. And I think a lot of us, we have this lust for more. We
get caught up in it.
You get caught up in this want to have the best of the best. But the reality is we're not using half of the specifications that the drones even offer. And you're right. It's just like looking at the cameras. I mean, I did the same thing. I bought an a7 III and I'm like, crap, now the new one's coming out. But then I'm like, well, I'm just using it for photos. What do I need more for? So it's the same thing that goes with the drones. I mean, we've got a drone here that can shoot 4K 60. The only thing that the S2 can't do is fly at night. But it seems like what Skydio's done with this is they've put GPS in, so that supersedes the fact that you couldn't fly at night, which I'm sort of begging to wonder that, hey, are we going to see a GPS option available in a newer version of maybe the S3 comes out and they're like, hey, we've added in GPS, we've sort of rectified some of the things that you want. I sort of like that foldable design of the X2. I wish the Skydio 2 was more portable. I wish it was foldable, but I understand the rigidity is needed to be able to keep those sensors safe. But I'm hoping that, hey, if you make another drone, I'll take a more of a consumer version of the X2. I think that design is just epic.
Oh, dude.
But I understand why the S2 looks the way it does. It's got to be consumer friendly, and
yes,
obviously it looks consumer friendly. It doesn't look like it's not complete.
Something that I didn't even notice on the X2, maybe it's just because they use a lot of like black on black here, like it's like the black drone on the black backdrop, is it has these big antennas on the top. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. And remember, think about the issue that we had with the Skydio 2. With the Skydio 2's range, the antennas are in the rear legs, right? They have to go somewhere, so they put them in the rear legs. So as soon as you turn one way or the other, people were getting disconnects because the antennas are now facing the wrong ways. Easy way they could have did this, they could have put diversity in there and had two, whether it be two sets of antennas in the front or two sets of antennas in the rear to try to rectify that issue for reception, but they didn't. Now it looks like on the X2 we are seeing something more of a diversity, or at least an omnidirectional setup there, which I think is great. Almost looks like a router repeater.
Yeah, it really does. And it looks like those pieces are easy to come off. I'm guessing maybe just for travel. I wonder if you can actually fly without those antennas on top. I wonder if that's an option. But I'm just seeing down here, one of the photos is of the Soldier unfolding it, and it looks like there's no antennas on top, but I see the connections, so I'm guessing that you can put those connections in. And I also wonder, because the 360 camera, or one of the cameras that make up the 360 omnidirectional view, is kind of right next to those antennas. So I wonder how
you're actually looking at the bottom of that unit, I thought, right? No, that is the top. That is the top. Yeah,
because the battery
is
I see underneath.
It looks like it's got SMA connectors on there.
So I just wonder here if those antennas will play some sort of potential, I don't know, downfall to it, because that would really,
I don't know.
That would really suck.
I mean, they are sitting a little bit high, unless if they're designed for long range flight, and not so much to short distance. I mean, it's going to depend. I'm sure this is not the final product for them. I'm sure they're just making a splash, and they'll fine tune it and make things a little bit more refined and clear. Something I would love to do is I would love to get Adam to come on this podcast specifically.
That'd be great.
I'm sure we can figure out a way to get the audio and everything over, even if we had to use another platform just to pull us all in to talk about this. But I think picking his brain would be super ideal. And I'm sure there's a lot that he can't really say, but maybe he can clarify some of the things that weren't clear in the video, for some of the potential people that are looking at this saying, hey, you know what? This fits my business's needs.
Definitely. There's two more things that I noticed. I swear, the more that I look at this drone, the more I uncover. Maybe I just didn't do a deep look the very first time, but I see, first of all, I know that the legs lock into place, which is good. So they're very rigid, right? They don't just unfold and sit there, which is great. We know that for Skydio's autonomy system, these legs are going to have to be very rigid and stay in place for those cameras to really operate properly. Dude, I also noticed it's a tri-prop design. Did you see that?
Yeah, I see that. I see that.
That is
the props,
so
I mean, they're
cool.
very, very aggressive. But you know what? That makes sense, because what I found with tri-prop is that I get less vibration with tri-prop. I'm wondering if they're doing that for a reason.
If you lose one of those props, will it continue to fly too? Like, let's say out of those three, if you lose one.
You can lose a prop and it will still fly, but I wonder if they're doing that because of the vibrations.
Or redundancy, improved redundancy. Either way, that is really cool.
Or they added the third prop because of the weight to increase the thrust.
True.
Needed to keep that going, because if you look, the battery is also bigger. We're now getting 35 minutes of flight time, which is huge, because the Skydio X2 can only fly for 22 minutes, which isn't a lot in today's terms, but 35 minutes of flight's pretty damn good, and there's a lot going on here.
That's great. But dude, look at that battery pack on the bottom. That is a beefy
That battery pack is beefy, dude. That is beefy. And I hope, I think if anybody knows how to get the most out of your battery as far as efficiency and quality, it's got to be these guys. I mean, I think they've sort of really thought about a lot when it comes to terms of, what it took to design this. I'm just looking at the photos, and it really is nuts. Even right down to where the motors sit on the arms, it almost looks like they have sort of like some sort of heat sink underneath it almost.
What I love about Skydio is that it's like after their first drone, they didn't back down and they continue to show us more. I mean, I feel like with some of these manufacturers like Parrot and Autel, they drop their drone and they just like bounce for like 3 years. They're like, all right, we'll see you guys next time we release a drone. But instead, they're taking a whole different approach.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we haven't seen from a manufacturer before. And because that can happen, right? You put out a new drone and then it's radio silent. I mean, look at Autel right now. They're radio silent across the board. No updates, no ETA, no communications. But even throughout the whole COVID pandemic, this team has kept working throughout the entire duration. They've kept developing. And what I love about it is even though they knew like, hey, we haven't completed the orders for the S2, we're going to still give you guys updates. We're still going to communicate with you and let you know what's going on. It may make you mad because you haven't got your unit, but we're still here, which, that took balls to do, because a lot of companies like look at 00. They went super silent, nothing, because they figure, well, if we fade away, people will forget. And Skydio didn't do that. They still wanted to stay right where they were.
I think that,
which I think is cool.
I say that I've been, flying drones for 4 years, which seems like a long time, but before I started flying drones, they weren't really all that popular. They're definitely more popular now, and I feel like we're almost just getting started, and Skydio is evidence of that, because they're just kind of taking this mundane drone industry that's been, more or less the same for the past 4 years, and they're totally changing it. So I'd love to see these other companies adopt their practices. I know that other companies are watching. I know that they're taking notes, and I think that with Skydio being a relatively small company right now, they are just getting started, and I'm really excited to not only see where the drone industry is in 5 years, but to see where they are and what they're doing, because I guess like besides just doing commercial drone stuff, like smaller operation commercial drone stuff, and making consumer level drones, they could really take what's the right wording here? They could really make a splash in the delivery game, the drone delivery game, like with their autonomy.
100%. They have the technology to do. They have the autonomy, and the biggest thing is they've acquired a specific set of talent that is working at Skydio. Like, these are MIT grads, and they keep recruiting the best of the best to bring their thoughts. And I mean, I don't know what it was. I think they tweeted it out, but there was one of the developers. It was like his first week on the job, and he had already figured out a way to make the Skydio, emulate packages or something to that effect. It was just wild. It's like, okay, week one on the job, you're already making the drone do things that it couldn't do before. So it's their whole staff that they have there. I don't think that we're dealing with a normal set of employees that, this isn't a production line. They have their hand in everything, right down to the assembly. And I know it sounds like we're probably really fanboying out.
Dude, I was about to say that.
It's one of those things where you got to look at everything sort of full circle when you talk about them, because I don't think when we do our videos, because we don't have the time to sit there and really go through all these little nitty-gritty details, but when you really break it down and look at it, I mean, they are the autonomy giant in the room, and DJI is sadly just the spec when it comes to autonomy.
I know. I mean, think about
sadly.
Think about their autonomous flight features and how little they've changed. I mean, yeah, great, active track, it follows you, but it's like they really don't have much of a use case or a purpose in my book when I'm buying a DJI drone. Now, to kind of backtrack and touch on your point about that guy with his first day on the job and how he made the Skydio, like he made a software a tweak for the Skydio. I think that was actually an intern. So it's safe to
exactly. So you see what I'm saying? Like, that's the type of people that they are seeking out and that they are employing, is people like that, And I'm sure that dude, he got himself a job.
Exactly.
I mean, that's just impressive stuff. But that's I think what we see here with this drone is what I sort of hoped the S2 would have been with the controller, having something more proprietary, or maybe at least a pro version. So this definitely gives me a brighter hope for their future beyond just their commercial line, because no doubt these will not be the last drones we get. And I think, if they bring features to the S2, it's just going to make this way much more of an ecosystem than anything.
Yeah, they there's definitely no doubt that kid, that intern, definitely received the job offer.
100%.
So I have a feeling that a lot of people that are listening to this podcast probably don't own a Skydio. I feel like a lot of the people listening right now own camera drones made by DJI, Autel, maybe Parrot. But I have a feeling a lot of people, maybe a very small margin, have the Skydio. And I think that it's because they want a drone that they can fly, and I totally understand that. Of course, if you buy a drone, you want to fly it. The Skydio is not the best flying drone, but you've kind of got to give credit where credit is due. Skydio is really changing the game. I think that it's going to be really interesting to see, as I said, what comes from them over the next couple of years. And just after recording this video, I think I'm going to go bust out my Skydio 2 and fly it around now. I'm itching.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been playing around with it, doing a couple of things, just comparing the Skydio to another drone, and makes me want to go fly it again, hop on the board, and just let it follow me.
I know, it's a lot of fun. But hey, if you guys have any thoughts on the Skydio 2, the Sky Dio X2, of course you can find us over on Twitter and Instagram. My handle is Billy Kyle. Ken's is Original Dobo. We'd love to continue the conversation over there. Ken, do you have anything else?
No, that's it, man. I think this was a good conversation. But yeah, if you guys have questions, drop them down below. We'll try to answer them the best we can. And hopefully maybe we can get Adam on this podcast.
Yeah, of course. That'd be awesome. All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Later.